Okay, so we got our machine group properties all ready to go, and we are ready to start toolpathing this part. So what we're going to do first is obviously we're going to face off this 100 thousandths of material. We are going to rough this contour, and then we'll finish the contour all the way back, and then we'll come back in with the next video to actually cut the threads on this part. So let's go ahead and get this started. Let's see here. All right, here we go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to our toolpaths and we're going to pick face. Just leave the NC name where it's at. Let's go to select a library tool and let's just pick the 80-degree roughing tool. Okay. Feed rate, we'll leave that 10 thou per rev for roughing. For the finish, we'll do like 2.5 thou. CSS, let's just set that at like 600. And then we'll slow it down just a little bit for the finish. And we'll set our max at like 2,500 RPM. Okay, we're going to give this a comment. Face workpiece. So we'll face our workpiece and make sure our coolant's on before we jump to the next tab. And then we'll go to our face parameters. Okay, for the Z, we're going to finish this to Z0. Right now it's using the stock, so it's taking the boundaries from the stock to create this toolpath. We're good with that. My entry amount, I'll leave that at 100 thou. I'm going to turn the rough step over on, and then let's just set that to like 50 thou. Okay. The finish, let's do like a 10 thou finish step over. And then the overcut amount, I'd like to do the twice the tool nose radius, so 1/16, which is probably more than you really need, but that's just kind of my rule of thumb whenever I'm just one-off programming. Retract, I can leave that at 50 thou, and on the stock to leave, I'm going to leave that at 0. So pretty much for the facing, that's the nuts and bolts of it. You tell it how much you want to take per cut, you tell it what your parameters are here, and it's pretty simple. Takes and generates it off the stock model, and there's our facing toolpath. Okay, and if we watch that in backplot, again, see if we can get it to play here. There it comes. There we can see it facing the workpiece. Okay, once we've got it faced, now we're ready to rough the OD, so we'll do rough. We're going to start with our radius here and then end with our line right here. We're going to use that same tool. Okay, we're using the same tool. We're going to basically set up our CSS the same and turn on our coolant. Max spindle speed 2500, G92 S2500 is what's going to post out. We're going to go down here, we're going to say rough OD contour, and then we're going to go to the rough parameters. Let's leave overlap on. Like I said, I usually don't turn that off. I always want that on. My max depth of cut, maybe we might do this as well. Let's do 75 thou. Sounds good. So pretty heavy cut there on the roughing. For the minimum depth of cut, I want to make sure that it doesn't go anything less than maybe 20 thou. We're going to leave stock for the finish path on both of these. Stock recognition, remaining stock. That's what I like to use there, remaining stock. And then I'm going to go into the lead in, lead out. Okay. For the start, it's coming straight in. I'm going to let it kind of come up at an angle as it comes into this radius. It's going to come up at it at an angle. And then for the lead out, I want to extend that past the end of the part, and I'm just going to tell it to extend 0.3. Okay, we've got a 1/2 inch on the back side of the part that I could turn that on back. I'm going to go 0.3, which should be plenty if we decide to part this off later. Okay. So I'm going to check mark here, I'm going to check mark here, and there you can see my roughing toolpath. Okay. All right. Now we will do the finish pass. Okay. So we're going to... So I'm just kind of looking at this and kind of judging it. Notice that we didn't get really down in this area, which is something that I should have been aware of, paying attention to. But technically, I can't really do that with the 80-degree tool. I've only got 10 degrees of back clearance on an 80-degree roughing tool. So what we're going to have to do is I'm going to take this lathe roughing toolpath. I'm going to copy it and paste it after itself. And I'm going to come right back in with a 55-degree tool. Okay, so basically I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select the library tool. I'm going to go in and find a 55-degree right-hand turning tool back here. Okay, I'm going to select that. And I'm basically going to say re-rough OD, because what this is going to do, it's going to look at the areas that didn't get into with the remaining stock there, and it's going to clean that up. Now, when I go to generate this, notice it didn't get anywhere. Well, here's why. There's this little box over here called plunge parameters. Okay, so I went back in the properties, in the parameters, and plunge parameters. Notice on this graphic here, it shows you kind of what it represents. Right now, they're turned off. So it's not going to plunge into any recesses on either the X or the Z faces. Now you can turn it on to allow plunging in both directions. You can say just allow it in X or just allow it in Z. You got the two options. Typically, when I'm turning it on, I go ahead and just allow it in both directions. That way, as long as you've got your tool clearance set up properly, it's going to recognize what it needs to do. So we're just going to leave these to the defaults here. And it's going to default to that 55-degree tool. Okay. And then we get this warning. The tool path starts with the tool embedded in the stock. You want to modify this tool path. So here's what's going on. On the lead in, lead out, we have to go in and adjust those so that it's not starting. Right now it's trying to come in and cut this, but it's coming up at an angle like this with it down in the part. So let's start at an angle coming down towards the part. Does that make sense? We're going to come in at this angle. And the lead out should be fine. Now the extension, let's just go ahead and shut that off for this one. We'll check mark and regenerate. And there you can see it came in and basically remachined that out and cleaned out the groove there for us. So now that we've got the part basically roughed all the way to shape, if we take a look at this and we watch this and verify right quick, we can see where our part stands, came through at the 80 degree, then back in with the 55 degree to rough that out. Now we can do our finish pass. Now, in the book, they've got you, and if you already did it this way, that's fine. You can turn it in this way if you worked ahead at all. But they've got you switching to a 35 degree tool. Well, we don't need a 35 degree tool to clean any of these areas out. The only way we would need to switch to the 35 degree is if our tool nose radius was too great and we had some kind of tolerance where we had to get into these sharp corners tighter. So that might be a case where you need to. But in this case, I'm not going to bother with it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do my finish pass. I'm going to pick my last profile, which if you need to, you can rechain that right there. And I'm going to go ahead and finish with the 55 degree tool. I'm going to set my settings here. So basically change my numbers. 2.5 thou per rev, 500 CSS, 2500 max spindle speed. I turn on my coolant. And I'm going to give it a comment here. Finish outer profile of part. I go to my finish parameters. And I'm just going to leave everything like it is. It's just going to do one finish pass. And then the lead in, lead out. It's going to come straight up now that we're starting out here again. I'm going to tell it to go up at this angle. And then on the lead out, I'm going to extend it again to 300 thou. And then to make sure it gets down into this groove here, I want to go into my plunge parameters and allow plunging. Okay, I only really need to allow plunging in the X direction, but you can do both directions if you like. Okay, either way, it'll work. So we'll check mark and we'll let it generate the finish pass. There you can see it running right along the edge of the part. Okay, so we've got this part turned, we faced it, roughed it, we went in and we did the little remachine to clean this area out with our 55-degree tool, and then we did our finish pass with our 55-degree tool. We are ready to now cut the threads on here. So the next video, that's what we'll do.